think they're running the room, right up until the data proves they're the problem. This one starts with a kid's $500 deposit and ends with a career collapsing in real time. Cascade National Bank looked exactly like the kind of place that sells itself on certainty marble floors, high ceilings, soft classical music polished desk, and that quiet, controlled atmosphere where money whispers instead of talks. If you've ever walked into a high-end branch, you know the vibe. Everything is engineered to signal prestige, from the muted lighting to the way people lower their voices like they're in a museum. That Saturday morning, Regina Carter walked in with her 16-year-old son Jamal, and without telling anyone who she was, she watched a live experiment unfold. 45 minutes earlier, she'd pulled into the bank lot in a 2018 Honda Accord with a couple of scratches and a high school sticker on the bumper. Nothing, flashy nothing that shouts, "Executive Her" outfit was the same kind of middle-class uniform you see on 1,000 competent professionals every day. Jeans, navy blazer, small silver earrings, well-worn leather purse, ordinary on purpose. Jamal sat beside her in the passenger seat, his hands on a small envelope holding his first real savings. "Mom, there's a branch closer to home," he said. "This one's fine," Regina replied. Her voice was calm, neutral, almost casual, but there was intent behind it. The way there is when you're running a test and you know the conditions matter. Inside, the lobby was a study in hierarchy. A white couple in their 60s sat with a loan officer laughing comfortably, Patagonia and pearl body language saying they belonged here. Tellers behind bullet-resistant glass moved with practiced politeness. A receptionist with a bright smile, name tag reading Kevin, greeted Regina and Jamal. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "We're here to open a student checking account," Regina said. Kevin tapped at his keyboard and nodded toward a glass-walled office. "Could you help the Carters?" Diane Whitmore emerged with the smooth efficiency of someone trained to control first impressions. 48, blonde hair pulled tight, expensive suit, a mug that said "World's Best Manager." On her desk inside were framed awards, customer service excellence, branch manager of the quarter, leadership achievement certificates that would look painfully ironic by the end of the hour. Diane's smile landed on Regina and Jamal, a fraction too late, a fraction too thin. If you're an engineer, you recognize microsignals. An extra pause, a tightening at the corners of the mouth, a shift in eye focus that happens before the person's face catches up. Regina noticed all of it and said nothing. "Right this way," Diane said. The office walls were glass, so the lobby could see everything. Transparency for show, not necessarily for justice. Diane sat, clasped her hands, and started with standard procedure. "Student account for Jamal." "Great. Initial deposit?" "Nah, $500, Jamal said. "I got a summer job at Rosewood Community Center, and some is birthday money." Diane's fingers hovered over the keyboard. "Community Center," she repeated politely, but there was a note under it, like a CPU hit a branch it didn't expect. "I'll need IDs, social security numbers, proof of address." Regina handed over everything. Driver's license, utility bill, Jamal's student ID from Jesuit High. Diane examined the utility bill longer than necessary. "Southeast Alama Ridge," she said, eyebrow lifting. "That's an expensive neighborhood. Do you rent or own?" "First test attempt." Regina answered evenly. "We own." Diane slid the bill down, eyes flicking up. "And what do you do for work, Miss Carter?" "Healthcare." Diane's face softened into that almost pitying smile people give when they've already decided your role in the story. "Oh, a nurse. That's wonderful. Hard job, steady job." Regina didn't correct her. She let the assumption sit. Because Regina didn't come in only to open an account. She came to measure how this branch treated people who walked in without branding, without signals of wealth, without the unspoken password of, "You should assume I belong here." Jamal's deposit should have been routine small amount, clear source, normal for a kid with a summer job. But the moment Diane registered the number, you could see her gears shift. $500 is quite a bit for a summer job, Diane said. Not curiosity, accusation wrapped in a polite coat. She stopped typing and stared directly at Jamal. Where does a 16-year-old get $500? Regina felt her inner patience click into a higher resolution mode. She knew this wasn't policy. It was profiling. Outside the glass, a young white couple in athletic wear approached another banker. Nike, Lululemon, easy smiles. They chatted. No questions about where their money came from. 8 minutes later, they walked away with a new account, laughing. Back inside Diane's office, 17 minutes had passed, and they hadn't even started the real paperwork. Diane leaned forward. I'm going to need documentation for these funds, a letter from your employer verifying your paycheck. And for the birthday money, a list of relatives who gave gifts. Jamal blinked. What? It's my paycheck. Diane narrowed her eyes. Young man, I'm trying to help you. If you have an attitude, I can decline this application altogether. Banking is a privilege. That line wasn't procedure. It was posture. Regina placed a hand on her son's shoulder, voice level. Ms. Whitmore, we've provided every standard document on your checklist. You're now requesting items that aren't part of policy. Why? Diane sat back. I have discretion to request verification when, and frankly, your attitude isn't helping. At the teller window, Ms. Patterson, older black woman, 11 years on the job, had stopped working. She was watching through the glass with recognition so sharp it looked like pain. Policy prohibits recording, Diane snapped. I'm not recording, Regina said, typing calmly. I'm checking consumer protection guidelines. She sent a text. You didn't see the recipient, but you could hear the quiet certainty behind her thumbs. Diane refreshed her screen like she was hunting for another lever. There's an issue with your credit authorization form. You didn't initial box 3B. Regina leaned in. I initialed every box. That's my signature. Diane slid a second form across the desk with red pen marks. The system shows it as incomplete. You'll need to fill out a new one. Federal regulations. Regina compared the forms. Identical. What specifically is missing? Box 3B, Diane repeated, tone sharpening. I understand this might be confusing, but these are compliance requirements. Confusing? The word hit like a subtle insult. Jamal whispered, Mom, can we just do it? Regina shook her head slightly but still filled it out, initialing every box with exaggerated clarity, then sliding it back. Diane scrutinized it like a counterfeit bill, even held it up to the light. Outside the glass, another white couple opened an account in 7 minutes with jokes and smiles. No extra hoops. No confusing compliance lectures. 23 minutes in, Diane returned to the $500 like it was a weapon. I need a letter on official letterhead stating Jamal's hourly rate and total earnings, and sworn statements from relatives for the birthday money names, addresses, amounts. Jamal stared. You want my grandparents to write statements about birthday money? Bank Secrecy Act requirement, Diane said, smiling thinly. We have to verify the source of all funds. Regina's voice stayed calm but gained steel. The Bank Secrecy Act applies to transactions over $10,000. My son is depositing $500. Diane's mask slipped. She didn't expect competence from the person she'd already filed under doesn't belong. I have discretionary authority to defensiveness, and I'm exercising it. Regina asked quietly, can't or won't? Diane stood up, the classic power move when the argument is failing. Miss Carter, I don't appreciate your tone. I'm protecting this institution from fraud. Fraud? Regina repeated slowly. You think my 16-year-old is committing fraud with his community center paycheck? Diane crossed her arms. There are patterns we're trained to recognize. Red flags. What patterns? Regina stood too, matching her posture, voice now steady enough for the lobby to hear. Be specific. Through the glass, the whole bank was watching. Kevin frozen at reception, Miss Patterson off task, a man in a suit staring openly, security guard Marcus Thompson moving closer. Diane flushed. The audience didn't make her cautious. It made her reckless. High-value deposits from minors, vague employment claims, reluctance to provide standard documentation, and your hostility. My hostility, Regina said, loud enough for witnesses. I've complied with your checklist. You're adding requirements and calling my questions hostility. Diane's tone went cold. There's a difference between a customer and someone looking to cause problems. Jamal's voice cracked. I just want to deposit my paycheck. Diane barely glanced at him. Then your mother should let me do my job. Regina took out her phone again. I said, no recording. Diane snapped, I'm not recording. I'm documenting, Regina said, typing another text. Diane's patience snapped. That's it. I'm not comfortable proceeding. I think you should leave. Regina didn't move. You're refusing service. I'm exercising my right to decline an account when I have concerns about legitimacy. Regina repeated the phrase slowly, letting it echo. What concerns do you have about our legitimacy? Diane opened the office door like a final dismissal. I don't need to explain every operational decision to you. Regina stayed seated. No, you're going to explain it in front of these. You want specifics? Your son shows up with $500 cash. You live in a neighborhood you clearly can't afford. You claim to work in healthcare, but you're dressed like... She caught herself mid-thought. Regina's voice dropped dangerously soft, like what Diane's momentum carried her past the point of recovery. Like someone who doesn't belong in a bank like this? The words came out faster now, fueled by bias and the adrenaline of losing control. This isn't a community bank. We serve established clients with real credentials, real money, people who contribute to the economy. Not she swallowed, but kept going. Not people like you. Her voice bounced off marble. People who come in here with demands and attitudes and then cry discrimination. I've been a branch manager 6 years. I know who belongs here. Then she stepped closer and said the line that detonated her own career. You want the truth? You're nobody. You don't belong here. Try a credit union somewhere more appropriate. You could hear someone gasp. Ms. Patterson had her hand over her mouth. Kevin looked sick. Marcus, the security guard, stopped cold, eyes hard. Jamal blinked back tears, one slipping out anyway. Regina's face didn't change, but her gaze did. The way a calm pilot's eyes change when they've identified the failure mode and are about to execute the fix. She looked at Diane quietly. You're absolutely sure about that? That I'm nobody, that we don't belong? Her Diane lifted her chin, smug in her ignorance. Completely sure, Regina nodded once. Good. I wanted to be certain before I made the call. She raised her phone. Diane scoffed. Who are you calling? Your lawyer. Good luck, Regina pressed a speaker. Janet, this is Regina. The voice on the line was crisp, immediate. Doctor. Carter, I got your text. What happened, Dr. Carter? Diane's smile collapsed. Regina spoke slow, clear, professional, like she was reading an incident report into a recorder. I'm at our downtown Portland branch with my son, the branch manager, Diane Whitmore. Refused service. Demanded non-standard documentation, accused us of fraud. Then she told us people like us don't belong here, that I'm nobody, and that we should go somewhere more appropriate. She said this in front of about 15 witnesses. The woman on the line, Janet Wu, Chief HR Officer of First Western Financial Holdings, didn't waste a breath. Is Miss Whitmore present? She is. She's listening. Janet's tone dropped into ice. Miss Whitmore, do not move. Do not speak to anyone. Do not leave that building. Subject, immediate suspension. CEO directive. It stated she was suspended without pay by direct order of CEO Dr. Regina Carter, ordered to surrender badge and keys, escorted out within 15 minutes investigation to follow. Diane stared at the screen like it was a foreign language. CEO, she whispered. You're the CEO. Regina stood, not tall, but somehow filling every cubic foot of space with authority she never needed to perform. I'm Regina Carter, founder and CEO of First Western Financial Holdings. We own this bank and 49 other branches. Her voice stayed quiet. I built this company 12 years ago. I oversee $8 billion in assets. Diane tried to scramble backward in reality. I didn't know. You didn't say. If I had known. Regina cut her off with one clean sentence. If you had known, you would have treated us differently. That's the problem. Marcus stepped in. Miss Whitmore, I need your badge, keys, and company phone. Diane started crying. Please, I have kids. I have a mortgage. Regina didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. You called my son a fraud. You called me nobody. You said people like me don't belong here. You meant it. Now you'll face consequences. Ms. Patterson stepped forward. Dr. Carter, this isn't the first time. I reported her twice Kevin joined. I emailed HR 3 months ago with incidents and timestamps. Carlos, the teller, added, the kind of pile that engineers recognize as not a glitch, but a systemic defect. Fingers. 6 years of power evaporated in 6 minutes. Robert Brooks, regional director, arrived breathless and furious. You told our CEO she's nobody? He snapped at Diane. You were supposed to respect every customer. That's literally your job. Marcus turned to the lobby and explained, calm authority, who Regina Carter was, her track record, her accomplishments. The absurdity of Diane's bias became public math. Diane slid down the wall onto the marble, sobbing, career over in front of a room full of witnesses. Regina walked to Jamal, hand on his shoulder. You asked why I didn't tell her who I was, she said quietly. This is why. Then she looked at Brooks. How many discrimination complaints have been filed against her? Brooks checked. 7. Demographics? He swallowed. All customers of color. Regina nodded, voice cold but controlled. 7 warnings, a clear pattern, and the system still protected her until she hit someone powerful enough to enforce accountability. That ends today. She instructed an audit across all branches, equity metrics tied to bonuses, real training not click-through theater mystery shoppers, AI disparity monitoring, a hotline investigated within 72 hours. Not revenge, redesign. Because real engineering doesn't stop at replacing a bad part, it fixes the architecture that let the failure happen. Kevin opened Jamal's account immediately, fees waived. But the bigger deposit that day wasn't $500. It was a hard truth injected into a system that had been malfunctioning quietly for years and finally got caught because the wrong person underestimated the wrong family at the wrong time. If this story hits home, think about where you've seen assumptions masquerading as policy and whether you've documented, spoken up, or stayed quiet. Systems don't improve by hope. They improve when we measure, confront, and rebuild them. So dignity is the default, not a privilege you earn by being somebody.